YouTube, what's up? How's everybody doing? Instagram's live. All right, guys. It's Thursday. We're live. Got some great things to share today. Where to begin? Let's see. Well, I'm going to be getting into some of the secrets of sexual mastery. I've got some great things to share with you guys. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna go deep today. First I just want to share that it's been quite a week for me. Source vibration, what's up? It's been an intense week to say the least. It's been a lot of shadow work, a lot of inner development work, and what I'm realizing is that this self development is really it's like self undevelopment or self redevelopment, because what it really is trying to undo a lot of the conditioning, the weird beliefs and the limitations that have been put upon us by our first teachers, our parents, our school teachers, our peers in our younger years, and just society in general. And it's a lot of work for sure. And specifically, I've been having these like old patterns that I thought I had dealt with, right? These like feelings of inadequacy, these feelings of there's something wrong with me and like how I relate to others. It just these interesting things, and it just reminds me that there's always more and more layers of this inner work to be going through. And there's really, I don't believe that there's ever like a state where it's like, oh, you reach the state of ultimate mastery and everything's just perfect. I don't believe that that's true. And anyone who says that, I think, is just hiding. They're not really facing their what they're holding on to inside, right? It really is a constant process of these things reemerging. I had this memory from my childhood. I just thought of this experience I had. I was super young. I was like, first, second grade, and I remember it was during like elementary school. I got called out of class to go do something, and it ended up being like, for some reason, I lived in a small town in Idaho, this hodunk little town, and they were having like an interview with me for the newspaper for some reason. Something about growing up on a farm. I grew up on this farm in Idaho. Anyways, I remember like they were asking me these questions and things. I was just a small kid. I don't remember what it was. So this happened, but I remember being at my grandmother's house like weeks or months after this. And then she's like, "Oh, Jonathan, I saw your article in the newspaper." And I was like super embarrassed. I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I said these things." And it just like, it made me very, I just seeing it now. This came with my meditation yesterday. I was like, wow, I haven't thought about that in 30, 25 years, whatever. And it just made me aware of this. It caused this pattern in me to be like really like afraid to just say whatever, because it would be like documented somewhere and people would be like, "This, you said this." I don't know, just this interesting thing. You know what I mean? So I had this huge block in my throat for a lot of my life, like just afraid to express myself. And I think in a lot of ways for me, ha- this path of sharing sexual kung fu has been really a huge avenue for me to open up my throat, open up my expression, and to truly share with the world. Like I couldn't have imagined, telling myself 10 years ago, you're going to be like teaching thousands of people around the world about sex and sexual energy and semen retention, all these things. I've been like, what? Like, 5 years ago when I created this channel and started doing this work, it was a huge path of me uh, overcoming my self doubts, my own self limitations, and just being able to freely express myself. And it was definitely a healing journey for me as well, because when I was learning this stuff, I didn't have anyone to talk to about this. I didn't. I would like talk to my friends about semen retention, non-ejaculatory orgasms. They just like looked at me like I was weird and like tried to change the conversation. I had no one to talk to about this stuff. And then when I went to, do my training with Michael Wynn in North Carolina, it was absolutely amazing to be meeting other people on a similar path, being able to talk about this stuff. And it showed me how much of a need there is for this work. And that's one of the reasons I created Sexual Kung Fu, as a place for people, to learn about this, and also, being able to create a bit of a community within the groups in my courses and things like that, where people can open up and talk about these things. And so it was kind of like, it became this avenue for me to express, because I didn't really have support of those around me to be expressing these things. So, anyways, that's what's been going on with me, guys. It's been good though, and all these tools, all the tools I share, what I'm sharing with you guys, it's what I'm using every day. When these things come up, smile to it. Don't resist it. Don't try to hide it. Be like, okay, I'm feeling this memory, this pattern. It's an exciting opportunity to allow it to shift, to allow it to be expressed. So, especially like the tools I from the first 2 weeks of my course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, these clearing tools are the main things I always use when these things come up. It's very powerful work. Okay, so, and that's a good transition to what I'm going to be talking about now, which is, first of all, welcome everyone. Always good to see you guys. Always good to, hear your questions, your comments, and everything. I'm going to be talking about, I've got a little more in-depth presentation today than normal on my lives. So I'm going to be talking about the secrets of sexual mastery, especially for men. Definitely this is specifically for men. So I'm going to just cover in this the biggest secret to lasting longer and overcoming premature ejaculation. It's actually a really simple thing, right? When you really understand it, but I'll be breaking that down. And also, of course, for men, how to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. And so this is very relevant right now because this is, sexual cultivation and sex, this path of sexual kung fu, it's about more than just having better sex. That's a huge part of it for sure. You just want non-ejaculatory orgasms, you want better sex, that's great. You're going to get that from sexual kung fu practice. But what I hear from a lot of men who go through my course is that this work extends beyond just what's in the bedroom. The benefits extend into every aspect of life because our sexual energy is our unique individual creative power. It's the power that we have to create our reality, truly, to decide who we want to be, what environment we want to have, how we want to live. Our sexual energy is the tool to do this with. And no one can take this power away from you. This is the biggest thing. You own this sexual energy. This is yours. The problem, though, is that people can, through various means, distract us, maybe stimulate us to release this energy excessively for men, right? Am I right, guys? And, make you forget about this fact. And what happens for men is we get stuck in these patterns of impulsive, lust-driven, masturbation and shallow sex through porn conditioning that ultimately destroys our hormonal system and health, destroys our masculinity, makes us addicts. But when we remember this and when we step into this harmonious connection with our sexual energy, we can truly become masters of our life, masters in the bedroom, but masters of our daily life and the world that we live in. And so this is what your sexual energy is meant to be. It's meant to be a force of healing, success, and creativity for you. So, those of you who may be new to my channel, I'm Johnathan White, and I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can manifest your ideal life. And really, my goal is to help people of this planet change their relationship to their sexual energy, turn it from being this impulsive thing that just drives them around and depletes them, instead gaining a harmonious, conscious connection with their sexuality as the healing force it was meant to be. And when everyone does this, the world is going to be a dramatically better place. And so, over the past 5 years, I've helped thousands of men overcome premature ejaculation, learn to have non-ejaculatory orgasms, and channel their sexual energy into creating life of their dreams. And I've personally gone from having, less than $100 in my bank account when I, when I was early starting this work, I went from having $100 in my bank account to having a 6-figure business. I've hit over $1 million in my business using these principles of harmonizing sexual energy and channeling it, right? So I want to share a bit about how I got into this work with those of you before I get into, the techniques and things I'm going to share with you guys. I want to share with you guys how I've started because some of you may not have heard, how I got into all this. So for me, I went through a lot of, as a teenager, like most men in the modern world, I was addicted to porn. I learned about sex through porn. And for me, sex and orgasm was this fleeting, obsessive experience that I could never really get enough of. It was never truly satisfying because it was always just this fleeting ejaculatory orgasm experience. But I was always very obsessed with it. So when I was 19 years old, I had a spiritual awakening, straight up. I ate some magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, walked off into the mountains by myself at night, and just one with the universe, just downloads, opened up energy centers, and just like, holy shit, cosmic orgasm experience, right? And then I came back from this being like, what just happened? What was that? There's this whole world, this unseen world, this spiritual world that I had no idea about, but now I want to have more of that in my life. And that led me to of course, take substances again, take more magic mushrooms, but I could never recreate that experience. And this is what led me ultimately to the Eastern practice of cultivation. I began yoga, meditation, got into breath work. I was making some progress on my path. But, even though I was like feeling like I was getting somewhere in my spiritual path, my sexuality, my sexual energy was still very impulsive. I was still jerking off to porn every day. So it's like, okay, I'm developing my spiritual path, but there's this sexual thing down here that's still really weighing me down. Still have premature ejaculation, all these things. So I was like, how do these two things fit together? Because I feel like my sexual energy and my spiritual path must be able to intertwine. I just had this intuitive sense of that. And that's when I got in, I discovered the work of, after a lot of searching, there's not a whole lot out there now, and there's even less out there back in like 2008, 2009. But eventually I discovered the work of Montauk Chia. I read his book called The Multi-Orgasmic Man, and it blew my mind. I was like, wow, men can have non-ejaculatory orgasms. And it planted the seed that maybe for men, semen is something to not just waste. But, I was practicing the exercises from the book, having some results, but still, wanted to have a better grasp on it. So that's what led me to study with Michael Wynn, who was one of Montauk Chia's students. And I'd been struggling to try to learn this work from videos and books and things like that. And I was getting some results, but mostly it was just, frustrating. So this went on for years. And then I finally made the commitment. I mean, this decision was driven because at the time I was like, I really want to go study with Michael Wynn, but I don't have the money. I was broke, and I had all these limiting beliefs like, well, if I spend the money, it'll be gone. But anyways, I went through this really difficult breakup where this girl I'd been dating for a while told me she was seeing someone else. And it wasn't the first time this happened to me either. And I noticed this pattern I had of being in these very like needy relationships with women, and then they left me for someone else. And I realized that I really needed to get my shit together. It was time for me to step into my masculine, time for me to really become someone in my life. Not really for them to try to appease other people, but just because it was leading me to dead ends in my life. And that's when I made the commitment to like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to learn this work. And I made it happen. I went to North Carolina. I went to Michael Wynn's summer retreat. This was in 2016, and it completely changed my life. And I really realized the biggest secrets I was looking for, and how do I have these non-ejaculatory orgasms? How do I experience this cosmic spiritual orgasm, channel the sexual energy through my body? How do I last for hours, overcome porn addiction? How do I practice semen retention as a sustainable lifestyle? I found all the answers to this, in this training. And it made me realize that it's all about the foundational work. It's actually really simple. When you open up the body, balance your nervous system, create a pathway for the sexual energy to flow through your body, a new pathway. It's easy. And you do this through Qigong practices, through breath work, through meditation practices. The stuff that a lot of people want to skip and just go like, well, how do I shove my orgasm up my spine? But you have to do that foundational work. We'll get more into that in a bit. But anyways, learning this dramatically changed my life. I came home from this retreat just like a whole different person. My energy levels were through the roof. My confidence was like just unstoppable. Completely stopped watching porn. Completely stopped like impulsively ejaculating. It was effortless for me to go to just practice semen retention. It became a lifestyle for me, and I started to have non-ejaculatory orgasms easily. And it created so many shifts in my life, and it put me on this path of, I went from being broke again to starting to create abundance in my life. I started getting into like this life path of passion, and it became very clear to me what my purpose was. And I started working towards that, and everything just like fell into place for me because I had, gotten this energy together. And, also I met an absolutely amazing partner who I've been with for over 5 years. She's absolutely amazing. We've been traveling the world together, just living an amazing life. And I'm just sharing with you guys to just get a bit of background on like, what was my journey with this? It wasn't easy for me, but if I was able to do this, every single one of you can do this. And that's really why I'm sharing this, is because, this is the shift you guys can all make. So getting into the training here, that's where I come from. The first thing I want to talk about is how to last for hours during sex and what's really stopping men from being able to do this. Some gynostema. This is good stuff. I just put the leaves straight in the water here. Raw dog and some gynostema. It's a great adaptogenic herb, very similar to ginseng. Jiao Gulan. Okay. Premature ejaculation The biggest secret to, I mean, just in general for men having, strong libido, uh, amazing sexual control, non-ejaculatory orgasms too, the whole secret comes down to balancing your nervous system. And this is the biggest, like, if you can do this, all this other stuff becomes fairly easy. But unfortunately, it's not always super easy to do. But I'm going to share with you, how you can do this, right? And what do I mean by this? The nervous system. We live in an overstimulated, burnt out world. There's just, so much stimulation, so much fear on the news, and that our, neighbors are telling us about all this bullshit on the news, and being on a phone, stimulation, scrolling, dopamine release. It's just it absolutely wreaks havoc on our nervous system. There's a lot of benefits to being in the technological age. There's all this information and opportunity, but if we don't know how to balance our bodies, it literally shreds our nervous system. So that, I believe, is the reason why it's extremely common for men to be premature ejaculators. The average man lasts about 4 minutes during sex before ejaculating. That's not a super phenomenal length of time. So this comes down to the nervous system. Ejaculation is a function of your sympathetic nervous system. This is the fight or flight response. So when you're living in a life of stress, your nervous system's just burned out. You're always going to be on the edge of ejaculating. As soon as you become sexually stimulated, you're always right there because that sympathetic nervous system is always strongly active. This is why so many men are premature ejaculators. But it's more than just that too. Excuse me. A lot of this also comes down to our conditioning around sex and sexuality, specifically being overstimulated in our teenage years through porn and through excessive, ejaculatory-based masturbation. Porn fries our nervous system as well. It overloads the dopamine receptors in the brain. It completely disrupts your natural hormone cycles, just your natural brain chemistry. And on top of this, all this like shaming and guilt around sex and sexuality created for most men very poor masturbation habits, like to just rub one out as fast as they can, in the shower before mom walks in on you, or staring at a computer screen with this intensely stimulating porn image, and it overwhelms your nervous system. It creates this very overexcited kind of stress-based response to sexual stimulation. And that lasts for a long time. That is why so many men are experiencing premature ejaculation. And that becomes just wired into your sexual response. Your body, it becomes the normal for your body. Your body says, okay, sexual stimulation equals quick ejaculation. So the whole thing is, how do we rewire our response? This is what it's all about, is creating a different response. And it's difficult just to like put something on top of what you already have, right? Going back to talking earlier about self-development, is really self-undevelopment, right? Undoing a lot of these poor habits we have. So really the biggest key, one of the foundations I'll say for ejaculation control for men is being able to stay in the parasympathetic state, that calm, rest, and digest state. Sympathetic nervous system state, nervousness, tension equals ejaculation. Calm, grounded, confident, relaxed equals unlimited ejaculation control for a man. How do we stay in the parasympathetic nervous system during sex and excitement, right? This is the biggest thing for men. Number one, the foundation of it all comes down to something that you're doing 24/7, something that you can always control: your breath. And a lot of you have probably heard me talk about this a lot, but if I repeat something a lot, it's because it's important. Your breathing is the one thing you can always control that has a direct effect on your nervous system and your mind, your mental, emotional state. Let's all try this together. So place your hands on your belly. First of all, just notice, how are you breathing right now? What's your breath doing right now? It's probably a bit shallow for most of you, and then not any judgment or something like that. It's just we live in a stressful world. A lot of us are shallow breathers. So now take a deep breath into your belly, like totally fill up your belly as you inhale. Hold the breath for a couple seconds and then exhale out the mouth with kind of a sigh. Inhale deeply into the belly. the breath for a few seconds and then exhale. One more time. Deep breath. All right, then just notice how you feel. Does anyone feel calmer from that? Mark says, change my breath into deeper when you mentioned it. Ha. So this is the basis of ejaculation control is proper breathing. This isn't everything. It's a bit shallow on the spectrum of techniques and how deep the work goes, but it's the starting point, right? And it's a very effective tool to use right away. Basically, what you want to do is start noticing throughout the day. Oh, how's my breath? Check in once an hour. Set a reminder on your phone or something and be like, oh, I'm breathing really shallow. Let me take a few minutes to just breathe deeply. But men, when you breathe like this during sex or during self-stimulation, that's a great way to practice. You keep this deep, slow belly breathing going. That helps to keep your nervous system in that calm parasympathetic state. And now, an important thing here as well is obviously when you're having intense sex, it might be kind of weird if you're going to town, your partner's like, "Oh, baby," and you're just like, you know what I mean? So you can amp up your breath, make it a bit more intense. Oh yeah, baby. Deep, but the key here is deep, this constant like this filling and emptying of your lungs from the belly. It's really quite simple because you'll notice when you, as a man, when your arousal is increasing towards ejaculation, you start to forget about the breath. You start to tense up, and the breath gets stuck in the chest. That drives you up closer to ejaculation. So by keeping this deep breath going, it keeps you. It creates a bigger container for you to hold arousal. That's huge. Okay, here's a question here, and I think is relevant. MA says, how important do you think diet nutrition is to fixing this? Diet nutrition is definitely important because your body is made of what you put in it, but having a perfect diet is not going to fix these things for you. Like it definitely supports it, but I share what I believe is to be the most important aspect of all this, right? Yeah. And again, diet's important, but it's not going to fix these issues for you. You can have the most perfect diet, the most organic, high-end foods, whatever, and you can still be super stressed out and tense and everything. So it's really the internal practice that's the most effective. Okay, moving on. Another huge aspect of ejaculation control in lasting for hours in bed is the pelvic floor. And most teachers will tell you to do Kegels. Do Kegel exercises. All the sexual experts say, yeah, do Kegels every day. It'll make your pelvic floor so strong you can just squeeze and hold in ejaculation. It doesn't really work like that. I did this for almost 10 years. And what I have found is that pelvic floor tension patterns, hypertension in the pelvic floor is one of the number one causes of premature ejaculation. A tight pelvic floor, there's these nerves in the pelvic floor that connect into the sympathetic nervous system. And so it transmits the signal from your penis into the prostate area to build up tension. And when you're in a stressed out state, it amplifies this, your quick shooter. And when your pelvic floor is squeezing on top of this, it's inevitable build up to ejaculation. So what I've found is that the majority of men, I think pretty much every man who has premature ejaculation, has a very tight pelvic floor. They can't relax it during sex. This is one of the biggest keys. And this really ties into the nervous system because when you're in a state of this constant kind of overstimulation in the nervous system, stressed out, there's this overstimulated, overexcited nervous system, it creates tension in the body. And for men, one of the most common places they hold this tension is the pelvic floor. So it's like you're doing a Kegel all day. I started to realize this was what I was doing. I was like, wow, I have so much tension in my pelvic floor when I started doing this work. And then I started to correct it. So how do we overcome this tension in the pelvic floor? Huxley Alex Xavier, he's onto it. You're ahead of me, bro. He says reverse Kegels. Yes, reverse Kegels are a fantastic way every day doing reverse Kegels to release this pelvic floor tension. Let's try this together. Exercise number 2. Think of So when imagine you're urinating and you're trying to push out urine, and if you like have a really full bladder right now, maybe don't do this exercise right now. Go empty your bladder first. So what does it feel like if you're urinating? You're trying to increase the flow of urine. It's a bit of a push. So do that. You can try it as you're breathing in. Think of like pushing the belly down to the pelvic floor. I think it's easiest when you are on top of the breath and you hold the breath and kind of push down with the belly. Think of pushing out the pelvic floor. If you put your fingers down on your pelvic floor, you'll feel this stretch outwards. Don't overdo it. It's not like a pushing really hard. If you feel pressure in your head, you're doing it too hard. This should be subtle, not like all of your effort pushing down. It's a subtle press down and expansion of the tissues. You start to do that every day. Spend a few minutes doing this every day. Throughout the day, notice, oh, my pelvic floor is tight. Let me do some reverse Kegels. It will start to release the tension. And so the key during sex is to keep your pelvic floor relaxed. You can also use reverse Kegels kind of intermittently to release some of that tension as it builds up. Now, this takes some time and takes some practice. That's why it's good to practice self-stimulation. Notice how your tendency is to squeeze the pelvic floor in response to the sexual stimulation. Don't do that. Relax. As soon as you start squeezing, stop, breathe deeply, and relax. And so releasing tension from the pelvic floor is a huge part of this. I go way into depth in Multi-Orgasmic Man on this, but basically doing like stretch exercises that really open up the hips and the pelvic floor area, like deep squats, butterfly pose with reverse Kegels and deep breathing, over time will rehabilitate, release this tension from the pelvic floor. It will improve your erection quality and massively improve your bedroom endurance as well. And also addressing the nervous system, balancing the nervous system is going to help overcome this constant gripping in the pelvic floor as well. Because again, overstimulated, stressed out nervous system equals constant tension in the body. I'm going to get into one of the biggest secrets on the nervous system as well, on what I found to be the most effective in releasing all this stress and things like that. And a couple of people mentioned ice baths and cold water exposure. That's great. It can definitely be beneficial. It's good for getting in the parasympathetic state, but it's also good to have tools where you don't, need to have an ice bath to do that, because that kind of limits you to external circumstances. Sexual Kung Fu is all about how do we do this internally, and external support is always good. But the thing is, you may be in a situation where you don't have that external support. That's why the most efficient thing is you have the power yourself. You don't rely on any external situations or props or things like that. And that will be, we'll get more into that in a minute here. Okay. So these are the biggest secrets to lasting longer during sex. Balancing your nervous system. And I'm going to share here in just a bit what I found to be the big secret for balancing the nervous system and staying in that parasympathetic state, deep breathing throughout sex, and releasing tension from the pelvic floor, keeping your pelvic floor relaxed during sex. That's the biggest, work in developing ejaculation control. There's a bit more as well, but I'll touch on that in a minute. Okay. And I want to share here, I want to share the experience of someone who went through my Multi-Orgasmic Man course, where I go into depth into a lot of this work, which is open for registration right now, by the way. There's a link in this video, link in my Instagram bio. But, Tony was someone who went through my course, and he was talking about doing this work. A lot of things I'm sharing with you. He said, this changed my life in numerous ways. I became filled with energy consistently throughout the day, to the point where I want to quit coffee because I feel like I don't need it anymore. Plus, within the first 2 weeks of this training, I went from lasting 1 second in bed to lasting at least 2 to 3 minutes. I mean, that's amazing progress. And for me at that stage in the game, that felt like a marathon. With the tools I have now, I know I'll be lasting longer and longer as I continue to practice the skills. It's a life-changing experience. So, a lot of men who do this work, it's completely transforming their life. This is the thing, is you do it and it works, but you have to be consistent with it. All right. And then one final thing I'm going to get into here, and I'm going to, do the usual Q&A after this training here, is non-ejaculatory orgasm. How to orgasm without ejaculating for men. Why would you want to do this? Because ejaculatory orgasms are very limited. You're just shooting out your whole supply of sexual energy in that moment, and you feel exhausted afterwards. You have to recover. You're impotent for at least a few minutes, if not hours or days afterwards. And we do that all the time. It really limits your sexual experience. So having non-ejaculatory orgasms allows you to, first of all, there's no specific end to sex. You can you can last for much, much longer, which is really enjoyable for the partner as well. Both you and your partner get much more pleasure, and you are energized through this approach as well. So, what most men think and have heard about the non-ejaculatory orgasm is that it's this. There's commonly taught methods. The top one is where you basically go to the point of no return at which the ejaculation response starts, and you stop stimulation and hold a Kegel. You squeeze the pelvic floor. Yes, you can have a weak, short-lived genital orgasm with that method, but I think it sucks. I think it's a garbage method. I did it for a while. Wasn't that impressed. What I'm sharing here is way more powerful, way more fulfilling overall. That's still a peak orgasm experience. Those little get to the edge, stop, squeeze. It's a limited kind of sending energy out orgasm. I don't waste my time with that. What I'm talking about is it's more of an energetic orgasm. It's the valley orgasm. What it is the sexual energy, the orgasm itself building up not just in the genitals but in the whole body, which is why we spend so much time in the sexual kung fu system opening up the energy channels, because your subtle body, your energy channels start to pulsate with the sexual energy. You can think of your nervous system as pulsating with this orgasm, and the whole body gets into the state of full body orgasm. That's what I'm talking about here. That's amazing. Okay, how do we do this? First of all, understand it's going to be different than an ejaculatory orgasm. And I encourage you to redefine orgasm. My definition of orgasm is a heightened sensation of pleasure in the body that's outside your normal day-to-day experience. That's a very liberating definition of orgasm, because for most men, it's like they associate orgasm as being the ejaculatory experience. That's a very broad, limited experience of orgasm. So now it's kind of like you step into it completely brand new. And it gives you so much room to work with. This is the whole thing. Men get so stuck in what they experience in sex. And so they're like always goal oriented, trying to stimulate themselves to this certain type of orgasm, missing out on a whole dimension of pleasure along the way. So when you redefine orgasm to simply a heightened sensation of pleasure, it liberates you. You aren't so goal oriented. And then it opens you up eventually to experience because these orgasms, they are very subtle in the beginning. You won't even realize it at first, but with practice, and that's why the sexual kung fu system, in my course, there's all these exercises that really develop your sensitivity, really open up the energy body, and it accelerates the results, right? And so once you're aware of this subtle pulsation, you can feed it until you get to these powerful states of full body orgasm that are way more powerful than the non-ejaculatory orgasm. Or sorry, more powerful than the ejaculatory orgasm. The first time I experienced this, I'll never forget. It was I think it was 2015. I was in Hawaii with a partner at the time, and I was just kind of learning some of the sexual kung fu methods, and I was breathing the energy, just breathing it, feeling. And I remember it started as like this, kind of like how you're getting somewhat close to ejaculation, but it's not really urgent yet. There's like that feeling of buildup, but it was in my belly, and it was like this deep, emotional, vulnerable, like opening of like, oh my God, kind of like when, back in the day you take a good drug starting to kick in. So it's that like, woo kind of feeling. I don't do drugs anymore. I'm completely sober. I get high on chi now, but I had my wild party years for sure. Anyways, it's like this feeling of like, whoa, I'm on the threshold of something. And honestly, it scared me. It was so powerful. And I allowed it to stop. But since then, obviously I've become very familiar with it. And when it expands beyond that, it starts in the belly. This just like, oh, this deep, expansive butterflies in the stomach feeling, then moves up into the heart. It's like this deep pulsation, this deep feeling of love and connection with myself, with my partner, with the whole universe. And at times it shot up to my head and like, boom, this like psychedelic feeling of being in a whole different dimension, like feeling at one with the universe, as cliche as that sounds. And anyways, and it doesn't always look like that. It's always very different. But I'm just giving you guys an example of what the non-ejaculatory orgasm is like for me. So how do we do this? The whole thing is redirecting the buildup of arousal into the body. And there's a lot of misunderstanding around this. There's a lot and it took me years to understand this, because it's just not really very clearly, concretely taught in a lot of places, because it's a more subtle realm of experience, this energetic non-ejaculatory orgasm. But, I found some techniques that really pave the way for this to happen. So basically what you're doing is you're working with the energy channels, the microcosmic orbit, up the spine, down the back of the body. So as this arousal is building during sex, you're drawing the energy up with your mind, just sweeping your mind up the spine. And when you practice, especially when you do the foundational practices, the qigong, the breath work, the meditation practices, which are really the foundations for this, right? When you do that, you're drawing up this orgasmic energy up the spine, drawing it up. And you start to feel this build up in your whole body. And again, it's very subtle at first. And it takes a bit of time to be able to kind of ground and hold that big current of arousal in your whole body. But when you do, it's like, so basically during sex, you're breathing it up, breathing the energy up. No goal-oriented approach. Not like I'm trying to get here, I'm trying to have this orgasm. You're just relaxed. You're just feeling. It's in a state of pure feeling. You can't be thinking, you can't be trying to get anywhere. You have to just be receptive and just guiding the energy up. And it starts to build, it starts to build. And that's basically it. You draw the energy up constantly. You get in this, what's called the valley orgasm. It's a state of orgasm. The ejaculatory orgasm is very short-lived, very sharp, obvious duration, little middle point, then drops off, you're limp. Not with the valley orgasm. It's a sustained just state of orgasm that it's like you kind of slowly enter the threshold and you're like, oh, this is wavy. This is nice. I really feel like I could hang out here for a while. And then just like slowly builds like ocean waves, builds and builds. And, that's it. It's drawing the energy throughout the body, breathing deeply, all this preparation work. And, it's an orgasm of this like subtle energy channels vibrating. So there's some big secrets, guys. What I want to share here is that, so I was talking about the nervous system. You guys, I given you guys kind of the basic understandings of these concepts. This is a good starting point. And everything I shared here is a solid foundation. If this is completely new to you, start with the breath, start with relaxing the pelvic floor. And if you guys want to make the most progress in this in the shortest amount of time, you need daily sequential training that goes beyond just kind of like, little maintenance work. It goes beyond that into really building and transforming your body. This is what the sexual kung fu system is all about. And I was talking about these foundations. So the quickest way to release these patterns of overexcitation in regards to sex in your nervous system, transform your arousal response and rewire yourself to experience these multiple non-ejaculatory orgasms I'm talking about here, and to be able to last for hours and hours in bed, is to train in a full system of sexual cultivation from start to finish. This is what gives people the biggest progress, is you go through this foundational training, because it's A to B to C. You prepare the body, clear the old patterns, open the energy channels, learn to move the sexual energy, ground it, move the aroused sexual energy, boom. That's the sequence of training. If you skip to just the, advanced sexual energy practices, which everyone wants to do, you're not going to get very far. And that is so that's the biggest secret is the qigong, the breath work, these sexual energy circulation practices. That's what rewires your nervous system to be able to handle more stimulation, more stress, we could say, but not that you're in a state of stress. You're able to digest this better, we could say, this excitement, right? So if you want the complete training of this is why I created Multi-Orgasmic Man, my 12-week course, which is open for registration right now. Registration is closing in just over 24 hours. So this is your last chance this year to get into it. Those of you ready to join, there's a link in my YouTube video description. There's a link in my Instagram bio. I'm just going to go over a little bit over what's in the course, go through the modules with you guys, and I'm going to answer some questions here. So it's a 12-week course. The first 2 weeks are about clearing your negative emotions, clearing excessive heat, clearing blockages from the body. Because again, as I said before, it's difficult to just try to like put new patterns into what you're already doing. When you clear the old, the key is it's like you need to weed your garden before you plant new seeds. That's what week 1 and 2 is all about. There's a lot of amazing practice for that. Weeks 3 and 4 are about opening the energy channel system of the body. So building up your chi, which creates the pathway for the sexual energy to flow through. Weeks 5 and 6 are about grounding, learning to ground yourself, ground your mind and your body, ground your sexual energy so it's more cool, it's easier to work with. Week 7 and 8 are about learning to circulate your sexual energy through your body to experience full body states of orgasm, charge your brain up with this creative energy, channel it to everything that you're doing. Weeks 9 and 10 are about arousal control, controlling your aroused sexual energy. So learning to charge up your glands, your endocrine system, your chakras, your organs, your brain with your aroused sexual energy, and have complete control over this during sex and have these full body orgasms. That's all in weeks 9 and 10. Weeks 11 and 12 is how do you integrate this during sex with a partner? How do you exchange your sexual energy consciously with your partner? Different tantric techniques to connect, harmonize your energy together, and create this deep orgasmic exchange directly of your sexual energy. Some really amazing practice in there. And there's a bunch of bonuses. There's yoga routine for sexual vitality. There's qigong for sexual health. There's an erection enhancing exercise program. There's tons of bonuses in there as well. You also get a daily practice guide that guides you through every single day of the 12 weeks and actually beyond the rest of your life. You know exactly which practices to do for how long. It's like getting a custom workout plan for you is basically what the course is. So again, it's a complete guide to self-mastery. There's flexible payment plans. There's really no reason not to join. If you guys are serious about this work, this is the time to make the change. Jump in, join me, group of men. It's going to change your life. You're going to transform, this investment is going to transform your money into you being a master in the bedroom, having more creativity, more confidence, more flow in your life. Your sexual energy is your creative energy. When you are really on your game, a mastery of your sexual energy in the bedroom with yourself, whatever, you don't need a partner to do this. You can experience massive levels of pleasure, self-love, and full body orgasm on your own as well. When you have that mastery in the bedroom, it spreads to every single aspect in your life. That's what I've heard a lot of people go through the course say, is that every aspect of the life is enhanced by this. So, yeah, that's it, guys. Registration's closing tomorrow. It's your last chance to get in. Multi-Orgasmic Man. It's going to completely transform your life. There's a link in my YouTube video. There's a link in my Instagram bio. Check it out. Okay. I'm going to answer some questions now. What's up, Camille? Lucius Lushansky says, okay, questions. When one knows that his yin or yang is fully loaded, is there a way to tell? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Like fully loaded? It's really what I would say is knowing you have a good yin yang dynamic is, are you able to transition between, it's basically like, I think a really good indication is, do you wake up in the morning feeling good, feeling fresh, and like you have high energy throughout the day to just bust things out. And then at the night you feel sleepy and you're able to just pass out into a deep sleep. That's a good indication of overall yin yang balance, but it's a very vague generalization because this is a pattern. We could take this pattern and then kind of overlap it on all aspects of life. Everything has a yin yang dynamic. This is a really kind of complex thing, but I don't know. Hopefully that kind of answers your questions. It's about balance rather than like, have I fully charged my yang or my yin? Even though that may be appropriate. Like, for example, your kidney chi, your base vital energy, is that fully charged? Fully charged kidney yin, fully charged kidney yang, which would also be a good indication of that is, again, the fully energized during the day, sleep great at night. What's up, Christopher McKee? Okay, then the second thing was, you like to say that yin is the seed of yang. I recently read elsewhere that if you have full yang, it can create yin. Yes, well, here's the whole thing, because with if you look at the trigrams of the I Ching, there's like, for example, fire and water, the two main elements of alchemy. Fire is two yang on the outside and a yin in the middle. So there's the potential for yin within that yang. And then water is two yin on the outside, a yang in the middle. So there's the potential for yang within that yin. And this is true yang and true yin as we experience it as humans, because the natural tendency of yang, so how yang supports yin, is that basically it's yang kind of for example, taking action, like you're taking action on something, you're on a project, and eventually you reach a sense of completion. Like you're like, okay, I've put I've put enough work into that for today, and now I feel ready to rest and step back. So that yang has kind of reached its maximum stretch. It's turning back into yin. But the tendency, if it's false yang, you don't stop. You say, okay, I'm getting tired, but I'm going to push through it. I'm not going to rest. I'm just going to grind till it's done. It's the American way, right? This is false yang because that yang is supposed to be turning back into yin, which will rejuvenate your energy so that you can be fully yang the next day, but you're not allowing that to happen. So you just keep pushing. You drink a cup of coffee, do a line of cocaine, whatever, to just keep things going, right? And that yang is never able to, um, it burns itself out. So what happens? You burn out your adrenals, you feel overexhausted. Maybe you stay up till 3 a.m. just pushing yourself through it. The next day you're completely dead. What do? Maybe you allow yourself to finally rest, or what most people do is they drink a pot of coffee, take some stimulants and just keep pushing themselves. So that's how yang creates yin, is it eventually kind of disperses itself. It reaches a completion. NJ says, learning about pressurized breath technique is helping very greatly on semen retention. Excellent. It's a technique I recently shared on YouTube. It's a great technique for ejaculation control. Shane Paris says, can you explain the reverse Kegel one more time? So again, it's a pushing out. Imagine that you're urinating and you're trying to push, increase the flow of urine. Do that next time you're urinating and just see what muscles you use. Now you're aware of that. It's also a bit like pushing out a poop. So basically, you place your fingers on your pelvic floor and create that kind of pushing out motion. There's also a slight engagement of the abdominals. It's a pushing, it's a bulging of the pelvic floor. And think of also kind of relaxing. And so the pelvic floor kind of flowers open, stretches open and relaxes. That's reverse Kegel. Experiment with that. You'll get it eventually. But don't do it too hard, or that will create further tension. Orion Nebula 111 says, I bought your sexual kung fu course. Is the Multi-Orgasmic Man course different from those techniques? So I'm not sure which one you're referring to. If it's sexual kung fu workout, which is kind of the base level course, yes, Multi-Orgasmic Man is quite different. Goes much, much more into depth. Multi-Orgasmic Man is super in depth, start to finish. There's a lot in there. The sexual kung fu workout is kind of a basic. It's a really good starting point, right? But the Multi-Orgasmic Man is like the complete beginning to advanced, start to finish system. Marcus Sar says, when is the Europe retreat? I would love to do a retreat in Europe. Next year, I'm going to be doing a lot of retreats and in-person events. So Europe is definitely on the radar. I will be letting you guys know for sure. I would love to do a sexual kung fu retreat in Europe. And I know there's a lot of guys over there wanting to make it happen. So I'll let you guys know for sure. Hovering says, hey, John, it's Philip. I've asked this a lot. What's up, Philip? Asked this, but members who have the full package have full Aceralis for life, right? I think you're asking if people who have the course have access to it for life. Yes, when you get Multi-Orgasmic Man, you have lifetime access to it. You have your entire life to go through it, to review. Every single update I make to the course, I've made a lot throughout the years as I've had it. If you bought the course, you get the updates for free. Some people got an entirely new course because I recreated it, a couple of years ago. And so, yeah. Again, Multi-Orgasmic Man's open for registration just for one more day. Link in this video description, link in my Instagram bio. Jasper DeMolin says, yeah, come to Europe. Oh, yeah. Escobar720 says, do you avoid fluoride? Yes, I do avoid fluoride like the plague. I drink clean water without fluoride. I don't use toothpaste with fluoride. I don't use, aluminum as well. There's a synergy between fluoride and aluminum that helps it cross the blood-brain barrier. Fluoride's a neurotoxin. Why are they putting it in drinking water? It's bizarre. Yeah, avoid it. It's a potent neurotoxin. The Fallible Believer 2.0 says, "Hey, I bought your course for $99. Is that all I need? Just curious." I'm not sure which one you're talking about. There's several ones I have. There's the pelvic floor, awakening sexual center course. There's a couple others for that. So I'm not sure exactly which one. I will say that Multi-Orgasmic Man is the most comprehensive, that has a lot of practices that are not in the other teachings. B. Vincent says, "What do you think of decaffeinated coffee? Does it still pull energy from the kidneys? You mentioned that in one of your videos." If it's truly decaffeinated, if there's no caffeine in it, then no, it's not going to have that, adrenal energy pulling, kidney burning, kidney energy burning effect that caffeine has. I've never actually had decaffeinated coffee though. It's like I'd rather drink something else probably. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I've been drinking roasted dandelion root tea, which is I mean, they call it dandelion root coffee. It has a very roasty coffee like taste. It's really nice. Also good kind of tonic herb. It's kind of a purging herb. It releases excess liver heat, which is great for a lot of men practicing semen retention. It also tonifies the stomach system, digestion, detoxifies. It's a really great kind of tonic. Feel free to send in your questions, guys. I'm just doing a little Q&A here. Shane Paris says, "Can you last infinitely?" I'm not sure if you're asking like me specifically or men through this training. I've developed pretty good ejaculation control on the majority of days. Yes, I can go for as long as I want during sex because then it's all about just managing. It's actually really simple. It's just managing your arousal, keeping yourself in a calm nervous state. It's also like the day to day what's the word, maintenance as well, because the whole thing is a lot of guys want things like, okay, what do I do once I'm having sex and I'm about to ejaculate? It's like, bro, at that point it's way too late. You know what I mean? It's all about the preparation work. It's That's why there's so much of this foundational work in my course, opening up the energy channels, the grounding work. This prepares you day to day to keep your system open flowing, and then you go to have sex, it's already super open. It's easy to start circulating the sexual energy, right? So when you do that, yes, you can last infinitely during sex. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. I would definitely say I've had my off days here and there if I'm like, which is why you have to always be aware of like being an athlete or something. It's like if you don't sleep well, if you're too stressed out, yeah, you're not going to be on your highest game. And that's why you're always practicing and training as well. Bad Bad Hope 77 says, "My penis is hypersensitive. It's causing me premature ejaculation." Yeah, very likely you have pelvic floor tension. I was talking about this in depth earlier, but basically, almost always when men have a very sensitive penis, it's because their pelvic floor is actually very, very tense because the nervous system signals going from the penis to the pelvic floor are create this contraction response. So doing work to release that pelvic floor tension will overcome this. Robbie D'Angelo says, "How do we get a resistant partner to join us in the healing practice?" That's a good question. If your partner's not really into the stuff, how do you get them into it? I mean, of course, you can, share. I think the best thing is to simply be an example of it, uh, versus like trying to shove the information down their throat, which rarely works. It'll just make them more resistant to it. Be an example of it. You're like, eventually they'll be like, "Hey, why are you so radiant, healthy, happy, glowing, so much energy?" Like they feel you and they notice that you're changing for the better and the better. And they may be, that's really, I think the only hope is like, they may be like, "Okay, I want to start doing what you're doing." Or they'll be like, "I'm going to continue going down this downward spiral of," not to say your partner is, but, or they're going to, stay on this kind of unconscious downward spiral maybe. And then it's this time like, okay, is our energy going to continue to harmonize together or are we growing apart? So it's always a tricky thing in relationships for sure. Director Venus says, I thought cold exposure activates the sympathetic due to the shock you experience from it. I'm not entirely 100% sure on all the science of it. Like for me, I'm just like, cold ice baths make me feel nice. So I do them. I'm not too, that's all I need to know. Right. But my understanding is that it kind of forces you into that parasympathetic state, just as like um, almost like the body's trying to regulate itself in like a survival mode or something like that. I could be wrong. I might just be pulling things out of my ass, but I've heard that the quickest way to put yourself, one of the quickest ways, besides the breathing I was talking about, the other quickest way to put yourself in a parasympathetic state is cold water exposure. Ralph Johnson, if you're having issues accessing the course when you purchased it or dropped off the payment or something, just send my team an email, info@jonathanwhitelifestyle.com. They'll get you sorted out. NJ says, how long should you hold pressurized breath? Like how long do you do the exhale for? Which is the pressurized breath is blowing like you're blowing through a straw, and it relaxes the pelvic floor. That's another great tip for keeping the pelvic floor relaxed during sex. It just as long as you can delay the exhale. The longer you delay the exhale, the more it will keep your nervous system calm and balanced and keep that stretching effect. But it's really up to you. Don't push it to where you're like about to pass out. Fenyo Chico says, this content is so great. Awesome. Glad you think so. Marcus R says, you're a hero. Okay. Mateus says, so normal Kegels are forbidden. I don't recommend most men do Kegel exercises. I think that Kegel exercises are bullshit for most men. There's a lot of misunderstanding. It's kind of like how, maybe this isn't the best comparison, but like how doctors just kind of like throw out opiates to a lot of people, just like, okay, well, you got pain, let's just numb it with this. A lot of like sexual health people just like, okay, just do Kegels, like without really understanding what's actually happening, like what's the root of the issue they're happening. The thing with Kegels is that they overly target just a couple, maybe a few of the pelvic floor muscles. The pelvic floor muscle group is 18 or so muscles, and you're only doing a few of them with Kegels, which creates serious imbalances in the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor it's not a standalone muscle group. It's not meant to be highly isolated. It moves and functions as a unit with the surrounding muscle groups. So it's strongly connected to the abdominals. It's strongly connected to the glutes, the thigh muscles. So the best way to strengthen your pelvic floor more holistically and mobilizing without the risk of like hypertension and premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction, which can be caused by Kegels, is to do basic lower body strengthening exercises, mobilizing exercises, squats, lunges, glute bridges, and core work. That will strengthen your pelvic floor. You don't need to do Kegels. I think for most men, it's actually a bad idea to do Kegels. That's my experience. I haven't done Kegels in over a year, not a single one. And my sexual vitality, my sexual ability and endurance and orgasmic capacity has only improved. My pelvic floor is still plenty strong too. So, what it's worth, that's my experience. And my understanding as well, I'm really researching this, learning from pelvic floor therapists who know a lot more about this than anyone else. Okay, where am I at here? Instagram, I'm going to lose my feed on 20 seconds. I'll pull it back up. Instagram cuts me off at an hour. Again, Multi-Orgasmic Man's open for registration for one more day. There's a link in the bio, link on the YouTube video description. Jan Rossman says, "Isn't that the secret Tao way of urination?" I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Maybe the like pushing out the urine. I don't think that pushing. I've heard that pushing as you're urinating to push the urine out is not good for your pelvic floor and like kind of like your organ system, things like that. So I don't know about that. There's also like I think the Montauk Chia thing where you like squeeze the pelvic floor to stop the urination stream a few times and like stand up on the balls of your feet. There's a lot of things I've seen. I personally didn't notice like tremendous results from any of them, so I just pee normally. Pulling the gram back up. Back to the gynestemma. Gynestemma, the herb of immortality. Another good one for balancing nervous system, since we're on the topic. Adaptogenic herb. Germ says, during sex, I usually go into this meditative state where my mind goes blank, almost like I'm disassociating. Do you have any tips for this? Well, you may be disassociating. Are you avoiding feeling things? Do you not feel safe in your body having sex? Do you have some like traumas and, bad memories around sexuality? It may be worth kind of looking into those, feeling into them, smiling into them, loving them, not trying to shove them or suppress them or get them out of you, but just accepting them and kind of allowing that to reach a process of completion and just practicing getting more in your body. This is what all the sexual kung fu work is. How do you get more into your body during sex, but without a way that you're doing it as a way of overexciting yourself? For example, the male tendency is to overly focus on the penis, and where their mind goes, the chi flows. So all this awareness on your penis puts more energy into there. It causes you to build up to ejaculation quicker. So one of the keys for getting into full body states for men is to keep your mind absorbed through your whole body. So just practice being in your body, making sound. I think sound is one of the best ways to get into this like primal, just embodied state during sex is to make some like deep guttural animalistic sounds like grunting, whatever. Hope that helps. 19 Grand says, how common is it to develop blue balls when practicing semen retention or sexual kung fu? Thanks for your hard work and great material. I will say it's extremely common if you're doing it in, certain ways, and it's very uncommon when you're doing it in the holistic, the masterful way, right? Most people in the beginning are definitely going to experience blue balls kind of here and there. Part of it's just like you're learning to hold more arousal, more pleasure, more sensation without ejaculating, which normally releases all of that, right? So the whole thing, I actually am dropping another video on this because it's time for an update. So watch for that soon. I'll go more in depth into it. But basically, the keys to overcoming blue balls: keep your pelvic floor relaxed when there's a lot of tension in the pelvic floor, which also tends to happen when you're like right on the edge of ejaculating constantly. Keep your pelvic floor relaxed as you can during sex. Keep the energy circulating. Get really good at the orgasmic breathing, also known as testicle breathing, constantly circulating the energy during sex, because blue balls is caused by just the energy's stuck in the balls. You want to get it to the rest of the body so it can hold that charge. Otherwise, it creates that kind of inflammation response. So basically, pelvic floor tension and a lack of circulation, proper circulation of sexual energy, creates blue balls. NJ says, what are 3 good yoga poses for semen retention? Well, it depends what your goals are with semen retention, right? But in general, I think that malasana, the like squatting pose, let me think, which ones have I been doing? Frog pose is amazing, really opens up the pelvic floor. And a lot of people say headstands, inversions and great in general are amazing just for your health, especially good to do before going to bed. It really kind of calms your system down. Like the yogis say that it transmutes the sexual energy to the brain. I haven't really found that to be true. I need to specifically draw the sexual energy up through practices, but we'll say those are 3 good semen retention practices. Yoga poses: frog pose, malasana, and I forget the word for it, but shoulder stand, headstand, whatever you can do. Shoulder inversion, right? Modern Communications says, in an effort to learn to know you better, who are the people that most influence your life and how? That's an interesting question. Influence my life. I mean, I don't feel like there's definitely people who I'm like currently learning from and things like that. Maybe that's a better thing to share right now. Who have I been studying with? I'm studying Tai Chi with my Tai Chi one of my Tai Chi teachers, Jude Trapani, who's dude's got some chi. He's got some Tao wisdom for sure. Really awesome guy. Um, Scott Meredith, continuing studying his work, especially in like the internal martial arts stuff. Who else am I training with right now? I would say my partner. Yeah, my partner Mariah has an influence on my life for sure. Just something, what am I doing right now? What have I been doing? I'm this summer's been like a world. It's not even summer anymore. This year's been like a whirlwind of different things. There's a lot of people I'm studying with and training. I'm trying to think right now off the top of my head. Michael Wynn's someone who continues to influence me. I think he has a very, very profound understanding of overall chi cultivation, internal alchemy, and the mastery of it. I know there's other teachers I'm working with right now that I'm just blanking. I apologize, guys. There's some good things. Your Brain says, what do you think of Dr. Edelhoff's debunking of the two kidney hypothesis? Does this align with Chinese medicine very well? He says there's one kidney, two pelvic calcium. I don't know what that word is. I'm not familiar with his work, so I can't really say much about it. But it's important to understand in Chinese medicine, the kidney system isn't just like the physical kidneys, it's all the water organs. The kidneys, the bladder, the sexual organs, the bone marrow, the blood, prostate gland, all considered the kidney system. Okay, James Burns asking if you do the payment plan for my 12-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man. If you do the payment plan, do you have to wait for full payment before you get access? No. All the payment plans, paid in full, everything, you get instant access as soon as you sign up. You're in the course right away, and you have lifetime access for the course. Again, Multi-Orgasmic Man's open for registration for just over 24 hours. Link in my YouTube video, link on Instagram bio. Lucius Lushinsky says, I'm feeling super sleepy at new work in the afternoon, and I don't feel good there because people are very closed and they expect to work too hard with computers. Does that mean I'm depleting yang for nothing? Well, hopefully you're getting paid, so it's not for nothing, right? I mean, this is what most work is you're just fucking draining your life force in exchange for money. You just have to ask yourself, is that worth the money you're getting? You know what I mean? This is why I stopped working at soul sucking jobs personally. But yeah, working a lot of work with computers and things like that, it really releases a lot of liver heat, gets stuck in your brain, you get headaches, heart heat in the chest, congestion, a lot of heat. So you definitely want to do a lot of qigong, grounding the energy in the earth, going out and walking in nature, connecting with the natural elements to disperse. Working with trees is amazing too for dispersing that false yang, staring at a screen all day. And obviously, I do online stuff, so I spend a fair amount of time on a computer, but I know how to kind of reset my system too. So yeah. Jack Erickson says, how often do you personally release? So my own personal schedule is about every 4 to 6 weeks. And that depends, sometimes a little longer, depending on a lot of factors. But again, I've experimented with many different things. I've gone for way longer, and obviously I used to ejaculate every day. And for me, 4 to 6 weeks is my perfect cycle. I have the most energy, highest hormones, highest just energy flow. Plus, an interesting thing here is that when you really master the sexual kung fu practices, you learn to kind of extract the essence of the semen, so that when you do ejaculate, you don't even notice much. It's like, okay, I still feel like I did before I ejaculated, right? So it's a whole different context. And this comes from, again, just my own experimentation, what feels the best for me, and my understanding of, as I've read a lot of the kind of the classical texts on sexual kung fu. It's actually a bit more common for teachers to suggest cyclical periods rather than like never ever ejaculate. That's kind of often an extremist viewpoint that can lead to a serious energy stagnation, especially for people who don't have meditative skill, who aren't truly alchemizing, refining that semen energy. It's just getting stuck in their balls and they become very stagnant, right? That's a very common thing. Ionoska Adrian says, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, says, you said in the past that you had some prostate issues. How did you fix that? So I didn't really have prostate issues. I had pelvic floor tension and pain that made me think I was having prostate issues. So I'm like, something, basically, this was back when I was still doing a lot of Kegels and like some of the like squeezing pelvic floor techniques. Sometimes after sex, I had this like crippling, one of the most intense pains I've ever felt. I thought it was my prostate. It was like, just like someone like shoving, a knife up my pelvic floor area. It was very painful. It was very alarming for me. And I realized it was simply tension, like just really constricted tension from all this squeezing of the pelvic floor. And once I switched to the relaxation approach, and I'm doing a lot of the like pelvic floor rehabilitation, the stretches and the reverse Kegels, which, I share some of these on YouTube. I teach the whole kind of routine in my Multi-Orgasmic Man course. Once I started doing that, no issues. Okay, RRH says, hi, how many days is good to practice semen retention for someone in their 30s? So if you're in your 30s, I would recommend going a very minimum of 8 days between ejaculations, going at least 8 days without ejaculating between ejaculations. Even better is 2 weeks. And you can go more than that, but yeah, that's kind of the minimum I would say. And then for the maximums, for most people, there's not really, I think for most men, there's not a lot of value in going more than 6 to 8 weeks, because at that point, often hormone levels start dropping. It's kind of a use it or lose it type situation with the endocrine system. I think there is a benefit to occasional ejaculations. So yeah, it just depends on your age, your health, and also the better you can draw like I talked about, the better you can draw that essence of semen through sexual kung fu practice. It doesn't even really become a big deal anymore if you do occasionally ejaculate, like you don't feel anything. Okay, Jose Avila says, I've been holding on to my life for an energy for quite some time. Is it dangerous to do it for a long time? If you're talking about retention, the whole thing is, my general rule with semen retention is, if you feel good and you feel balanced, everything feels good, you have healthy libido, healthy testosterone, keep going. If you're starting to feel stagnant, frustrated, if you're having like, tension and pain in your pelvic floor area, your prostate, if you're feeling low libido, this is a sign that you're kind of past your prime period with retention. You should probably start over. That's my experience with it. Darius Scott says, just out of curiosity, if you've ever used singing bowls or tuning forks in your meditations. Yeah, I'd use these things a lot. They're a great way to kind of, they kind of retune your body, your cells, your energy body. Yeah, they'd be very beneficial for sure. Michael says, is foamy pee common on semen retention? It's not unusual. This often, what you are eating and how hydrated you are will affect this as well. But it's not uncommon for like there to be a buildup of fluid, both seminal fluid and like prostate fluid, and that kind of overflows into the bladder sometimes, especially if you're like having non-ejaculatory sex. It's fairly common afterwards for your urine to be very foamy, because some of the, not even necessarily sperm, but just the seminal fluid and the prostate fluid is released in the bladder and things like that. So don't worry about it too much. Lucius Lushinsky says, I've heard even listening to bird chirping sounds can help regenerate our energy. Yeah, nature in general, the sounds, vibration, the natural vibration, the sound of waterfall, the sound of birds singing, Vibration has a profound effect on our body. There's this interesting, I learned about this event. So basically, there was this factory, right? They found that this was a long time ago, I think. They found that all these workers at this factory, like a loud factory, there's this like low frequency, loud machine noises all day. All the workers were getting sick, except for like three of them. And they found that the three workers who weren't getting sick were like playing in a classical music orchestra. So they were like retuning their bodies to harmonious sounds of these natural these wood, metal, natural sounds, instruments. So sound does have a profound effect on our body and our health. When you're surrounded by disharmonious, dissonant sounds, mechanical sounds, uh, machine noises, loud traffic all day, it has a negative effect on your health and your energy. When you're surrounded by harmonious sounds, nature, again, waterfalls, birds singing, all this stuff, it has a very healing effect. And Naska Adrian says, what should you do to start feeling the chi energy? Practice Qigong. I go into depth in my course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, different exercises that really help you feel your chi, pack your arms with chi and things like that. But, check out, kind of for starters, check out my Qigong routine, Qigong videos, my playlist on YouTube. You'll start to feel your chi pretty quickly when you do Qigong in the right way. Okay, guys, just a couple more questions. Thanks everyone for joining. Baki Onigiri says, how come most adult film stars go the route of pills for performance? Wouldn't energy sex be a healthier way to perform well? It definitely would be, but most people in the world are not. I think most porn stars aren't really looking for what's the most harmonious and balancing for them. They're just like, they're in their own path, right? And this is just the normal thing for humans. It's like, well, that requires work. Why I want to do that when I can just take a pill? But the pills have long-term negative effects. It's a short-term fix, putting a Band-Aid on something versus, this is what humans do nowadays. And Jay says, I read on forums and Reddit that on semen retention, your eye color changes. Can you confirm this? I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to this. Do my eyes look different? I haven't noticed this personally, but maybe it's a thing. I don't know. Okay, guys, thanks for joining. I'm going to jump off. Again, Multi-Orgasmic Man is closing in just over 24 hours. You have one more day to get in. This is a complete guide to master your sexual energy, overcome premature ejaculation, learn to have full body non-ejaculatory orgasms, learn daily practices to keep you energized, high naturally, to build confidence, vitality in your life, more confidence in the bedroom and in daily life, more creativity, everything. Multi-Orgasmic Man, it's a complete program for development. All right, take care, guys. I will see you soon. Have a good weekend, everyone.